following paid commercial program is brought to you by TD Wealth.
Welcome to Money Talk. I'm Kim Parley. Thanks so much for joining us. Artificial intelligence has taken investors and the world by storm in the past 6 months, but is only one kind of many so-called technologies called deep tech that are potentially world-changing. And our next guest is in the business of finding these deep tech opportunities. Manish Kothari is a founder and managing partner at First Spark Ventures, a venture capital fund investing in deep tech, who also focuses on high-tech innovation and science and engineering. Manish, it's a pleasure having you with us. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's a real pleasure, Kim. Pleasure.
So let's start off with maybe tell us about First Spark Ventures. You yourself and your colleagues who are involved with First Spark have a long pedigree in innovation technology. Maybe tell us a bit of how it came to be.
Yeah, so First Spark is really a combination of three different groups. It's a brand new $400 million deep tech venture fund. We invest in companies where the scientific breakthrough has occurred and there's massive IP advantages there. So it's founded by really three core groups of people. Myself, Stanford Research Institute, or SRI International, who is a partner with us, and Eric Schmidt, who has helped, former CEO and chairman of Alphabet. We invest in deep tech. SRI has been at the foundation of a number of great investments in the past, great creation of companies in the past, everywhere from Siri for your iPhone to Nuance to Intuitive Surgical, and we're sort of bringing that sort of thinking to the forefront here.
Tell me what that sort of thinking that you're bringing to the forefront means, because one of the things I was looking at a previous conversation you had with somebody, you talk about the ability to shift the timeline. So with companies and innovation, I'm assuming that makes making these things happen a little faster.
Correct. So, when you look at tech, which is really applications versus deep tech is the things that cause sustainable, long-term fundamental changes. Think about NVIDIA, think about Tesla, think about SpaceX. These companies really transform the landscape in a very deep and profound way. However, they often take very long to get to the scale of return that's great from a venture perspective. The good news today is what you've seen is that the fundamental component technologies have developed so much that we're now ready to accelerate much faster, and our fund really focuses on providing them, these startups, the tools and tricks, if you will, to be able to go and hit the same sort of outcomes as you see in NVIDIA, Tesla, and SpaceX, but in timeframes that are far speeded up. This would not be possible 5 to 10 years ago, but it is definitely possible today.
It's fascinating. I mean, again, technology begets technology, I guess is what you're saying, in terms of things moving faster and faster. If people look at the fund itself, I mean, you talk about being involved in advanced computing, digital biology and biotech, and cyber physical systems. I want to speak about each of those so you can educate us as to what that means and what you're seeing. But if we think about advanced computing and AI, just to start with, has ChatGPT been as big a deal as perhaps as maybe the mainstream thinks it is in terms of advancing AI and bringing it into the world?
Just the short answer is yes. ChatGPT, or generative AI in general, has really expanded things out. Let's talk about it. I mean, there's a few things that it's fundamentally changed, right? Like, let's start with this concept of data synthesis. So before computers even existed, we used to use books. Well, it was oral, and then books. Then you had encyclopedias, and then you had computer systems, and then you had the internet. Each of these things, what they fundamentally did was increase the speed at which you could synthesize information. So one of the things ChatGPT does is that, or any of these large language models do, is that they really transform our ability to rapidly synthesize information. Now, when you rapidly synthesize information, think about it like rapidly synthesizing food. From 1900s to now, you grew much taller, you grew much stronger, you grew healthier. All of this happened. But then food became easier and easier to synthesize, think fast food, and then you have other things happening, which is heart disease, cancer, other issues. So what we've got now is the next evolutionary step in data synthesis. We're able to synthesize things much faster. If you talk to a high school student today, that a lot of them are using ChatGPT, and not in ways just to make things easy and cheat, but really to understand and synthesize better. The second thing ChatGPT has allowed, and this is pretty profound, is it's allowed us to talk to computers in ways like normal human beings. Until the last 50, we've always talked like human beings to each other. Only in the last 20, 25 years, we've started using this sort of weird Boolean search speak, and it's even permeated in our day-to-day lives, the way we talk about things. We're actually the aberrant generation, if you will. Two generations. The generations before the 70s spoke in normal English. The generations after the 2020s and 2030s onwards will interact with everything again in normal language. We're the ones, and ChatGPT is a fundamental enabler of that, which really does change the way one interacts with any computer.
It's fascinating. You're right. I mean, I think about kind of the term prompt engineer and people who learn how to speak to things, and now, we start to speak more like ourselves. As we do more of that, and as that expands, how do you see generative AI changing how we do things? I mean, the food analogy is really interesting, and that was very productive in the beginning, and then it kind of went sideways in other ways. Do you see that happening with AI at all?
It could. Look, we're about to enter into the very beneficial period of increased synthesis. Think of the early first half of the food synthesis and the ease of access of food sort of approach. We're about to enter a place where people are going to spend even less time trying to collate the data, organize the data, and more time trying to apply the data. Let me give some examples. I mean, I'll start with example, let's say pediatric medicine.
Yeah.
Machine learning is very useful in many areas, but it always needs a lot of data. Here's the challenge in pediatrics. Any one hospital will not have enough data to run machine learning significantly on it. So now what you need is to have groups in McGill correspond with groups in Stanford, correspond with groups at Harvard. The challenge with all of these things is that you don't necessarily have enough data in any one location. With generative AI, you can start creating synthetic data. So synthetic data allows you now to quickly leapfrog this weakness in data and suddenly be able to take advantage of modern machine learning techniques, thereby changing things like in pediatrics, for example. Take another example, Waymo. Waymo has had such a big advantage in self-driving because it is years away ahead of everybody in data collection. Today, with generative AI, people are starting creating synthetic data sets to augment their data set and try and catch up faster. So you heard over the last 5 years, data is the next oil. What you're hearing now is that itself is being challenged, and part of the reason is generative AI. That's just one example of something that generative AI is able to do for you now.
Utterly fascinating. Manish, please stay with us when we come back. We're going to have a bit more of the conversation with Manish Kothari of First Spark Ventures, including the types of companies that can pique his interest. There's more coming. And later, if you're thinking of selling the family home to your child at a discount, is that a good idea or a bad one? Nicole Ewing of TD Wealth gives the pros and the cons. You're watching Money Talk. We'll be right back.